Hello, everyone. Welcome to the COVID-19 Widowed Resource Program. We are live today with a number of our group members and also recording for those of you who have been unable to attend or are just unable to attend today. My name is Michelle Neff Hernandez. I am the CEO of Soaring Spirits International. Our work here today is really to provide a network of support for anyone who has experienced the death of a spouse or partner to COVID-19. We are talking today about anger and about healthy ways to express anger. So I want to start first by reminding all of us that anger is an emotion, and emotions, as we all know, come and go. The thing about anger, though, is that especially for women, it has the tendency to be culturally unacceptable. Right? We're supposed to be nice and kind. And even for men, we're not supposed to be aggressive and, shout out our anger at people. It's frowned upon for a number of reasons, many of them good. But what that has created culturally for grievers is this sense that we're not allowed to be angry. And I want to add the complication, right, when you're grieving, of the fact that you could experience some anger towards your person, the person you love and miss so much. Your anger could be directed at them, or you might find that your anger is directed at, a hospital or at a particular group of people or a specific person in general, whether it's a political figure or a person that you only met once. Like, your anger can be directed in all kinds of ways, some that might make sense to you and others that don't. So pairing that culturally unacceptable vibe that we sometimes have going on with anger with the complication of potentially being angry at someone who we want to just feel love for and we're just missing, it sort of colludes to make us all feel like we can't speak our anger. Like it's just, we're not supposed to be angry. Just to give you a personal example, my husband was hit by a car. He could not have changed anything that happened. And yet there have been times when I was just so mad at him for going out on that ride that day. And I felt fine about it that day. It wasn't until it all went wrong that it made me angry. And I will say that it didn't consistently make me angry. And I'm past the anger part of that right now. But fast forward 8 years after he died, and I'm holding his first grandson, and I'm angry again. Why? Because he should be here doing that. So just know that anger comes and goes. And that for some people, they struggle because they think, oh gosh, I don't feel any anger. Maybe I'm supposed to be angry. And sometimes that's a result of our culturally uncomfortable feeling around anger, or our inability to figure out how to express that, or even to name it that, right? Sometimes we don't even call the feeling we have anger. Maybe we use the word resentment. Maybe we use a different word that feels more acceptable to us, or that just comes to us, and we're not thinking it's just anger. So when I say that just anger, what I mean is anger exists in its own space, right? And anger as an emotion can focus, right? It has actually its own purpose. When we're angry, we often can be focused in our efforts towards something. I'll give you the example of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. People who had experienced something awful were angry about it, and that anger led them to a cause. It happens for many people, and it may have happened for some of you. You may have found a place to channel your anger that feels like doing something about it, and that can be great. It's not mandatory, and it is sometimes the way that people, instead of managing their anger, they lean into their anger and then they close out all other emotions. So that's the other thing about anger, is that it can be big. When anger's in the room, sometimes there's not a lot of room for anything else. And so what that leads to is, when we don't express our anger, unexpressed anger leads to other symptoms. Right? So it's like when you take it, you bottle it, you stuff it down, you keep telling yourself, it's okay, I'll push it down, push it down, push it down. It can come out in physical symptoms like headaches, migraines, stomach aches, muscle pain. It can come out in the targeting of language towards people you actually love and care about, but your fuse is so short and you've not given yourself the opportunity to express the frustration and anger you're feeling. And so sometimes that means being short with the people we actually care about, or, you know, the random person who told me that the fence in my backyard was needing to be replaced, and did I want a 5 or a 10 or a 15-year fence? And I yelled at him, why would he ask me such a stupid question? Because I was mad that my husband wasn't there to deal with the fence. It wasn't the poor fence guy's fault, but he was just the person who was in front of me, and I was feeling angry. And so one of the things about not expressing the anger that we have is that we can't be sure when or how the expression will insist upon coming out. And I don't know if any of you have had the experience of, you know, suddenly being very angry about something that doesn't really make sense to you. Like, I don't know why I'm so angry about this thing, but I'm really, really angry about that fence. How dare you talk to me about a fence? Because I had unexpressed anger, and it all came to a head when the last straw on the camel's back was the fence falling down, right? So because during widowhood, we're juggling so many things, both responsibilities and feelings, and, you know, anger as one of those feelings. When you get one more thing, whatever it is, you know, the dentist told you that you have to now have a filling, you know, that toilet actually is broken, it's gonna have to be replaced, like all of the things where you're just like, oh my God, I can't take one more thing. That's when the unexpressed anger can rise to the top and become very angry about something that typically maybe would not have pushed you over the edge. So a couple of thoughts around this. One is to give yourself a lot of grace if you find yourself in a situation where you have exploded at somebody who didn't deserve it and who was actually not the target of your anger. The second thing is, if you have an opportunity to be able to apologize for that, I will say that I apologized to my children more than once for them being the target of my anger that was not directed towards them. But also to find yourself your ways of getting to express that anger. So a friend of mine told me that a therapist told her once that one thing you could do to express your anger is to take cotton balls and throw them at the wall. I just want you to, I mean, does anybody feel like they'd get a lot of satisfaction out of throwing cotton balls? And so we got a good laugh about that, because we were like, really, what's that going to do? Having said that, her friend who heard that experience set her up a target for in her backyard, which was a block wall, and she threw dishes instead. The dishes turned out way more satisfying than the cotton balls. Having said that, we each have what's comfortable for us in terms of expression. What I can tell you about expressing anger is that if it can include something physical, it makes a big difference. So whether that's yanking weeds out of the garden, when my husband died, we shared an office, and his desk was a behemoth desk that could not be moved out by me alone. And one night I took a hammer and I hammered apart the whole desk into multiple small pieces so that I could drag it out to the street one piece at a time. And I can tell you, it was an extremely satisfying experience, probably not the best use of the poor desk, but I did not care. But if you can find something that includes physical activity, so, you know, if you're a walker, walking straight uphill, like something that requires all of your energy so that you can use that anger to fuel the physical activity that you're doing. And it could be any physical, like I said, gardening, throwing dishes at a wall. If you are the kind of person who really could get a lot out of the cotton ball story, more power to you. That works too. One of our team members, you met her, maybe, I think, did they met Whitney? Whitney was here. No, yeah, Whitney was here. I don't know, she told you she used to go through grocery stores and squeeze bread. Like, go into the grocery store and just squeeze all the breads. And she got great satisfaction out of knowing that somebody was going to pick up this bread that was completely ruined. And she said, I feel a little guilty about it now, but at the time I loved going to the grocery store, because the grocery store was one of her hard places, right? You go to the grocery store, you're feeling all the emotions that shopping for groceries might bring. she goes through the grocery store and squeezes all the bread. So I'm not suggesting that that's what you do, but I'm saying that there are a number of ways. But if you can find a physical expression for your anger, anger is the kind of emotion that takes up the space in the room. And so it needs to be expressed in some sort of physical way. That could be screaming in your pillow. That could be playing music at the loudest possible volume in your car at a top volume so that you are completely surrounded by the sound. It's different for every person, but the physical expression of anger is what can lead to that jello feeling where you're just like, oh, okay. Now, has it fixed anything? No. Has it changed anything? No. Do you still have to get up the next day and do the same thing you had to do the day before? Yes. But it has given you an opportunity to express the depth of your anger or despair. And you and your body, your mind, your soul needs that. It needs to be able to scream at the heavens, whatever it is that feels right for you. And so finding that physical activity that works for you is really one of the best ways that you can get anger out. Another thing I want to just mention is that for some people, anger is so uncomfortable an emotion that they never give themselves the freedom or feel able to express or even feel anger. And some people are just genuinely not able or in touch at all with a feeling of anger. There's nothing wrong with any of that. If you're not struggling with anger, if you're not experiencing anger right now, that does not mean you're not grieving properly. If you are, but what I want to mention is that because it is such a natural part of the grief experience, it's possible that anger might just not come up for you right away. It could be that other emotions are more forward. And like I said, 8 years later, I'm holding my late husband's first grandchild, and I'm angry because he should be here. So you don't know when it may come to you or how you might experience it, or if you will for sure experience it. No one knows. We each live this in such a unique way. It's a common part of the grief experience. And it is something that if we can allow ourselves, and here's the thing, the last thing I'll say about anger is that giving yourself a plan for expressing your anger is a way of sort of heading it off of the past, right? So if you're a runner and you are feeling angry and you know you can go for a run and you're going to come back feeling like a wet noodle instead, having processed some anger, great. If you're a project person who just goes out and does the project, takes apart the desk with a hammer, whatever works for you, but being able to think ahead to give yourself some of those opportunities, especially if you share your house with someone or, just like you don't feel like you have the freedom of expression at any time of the day or night, to give yourself some space for that. So just to recap, one, anger is a very normal part of the grief experience. I think for the COVID-19 widowed group, there's a million different ways that anger has been expressed and influenced in the world, let alone in your personal experience. You're experiencing not only your own anger, but the anger of whomever about whatever, right? No matter what side of the world they might be on or what side of any kind of opinion they may have, you're experiencing not only your own anger, but the rest of the world's anger as well. And that is a normal part of grief, but not the level that you guys all have had to struggle through. And so that just means the extra self-care is going to be really critical as you process these really strong emotions. Secondly, I just want to remind you that it can be considered culturally unacceptable for us to express anger. And it is the opposite of helpful when we're stuffing down the anger and not giving that expression, the validation really of the experience that you've lived. And that leads to the next point, which is unexpressed anger comes out in other ways. It comes out in your body, it comes out in your emotions, it comes out in your relationships, right? It comes out, it's coming out whether or not we give it a healthy place to be expressed. Lastly is to consider how might you have some sort of physical outlet for your anger. And by physical, I don't necessarily mean picking something up and throwing it. Of course, if that's a safe way for you to express your anger, that's welcome. But, like I said, it can be music for some people. It's a particular type of music. It can be typical things that you would normally do, like gardening or something, but it has to be a way of taking your feelings and pushing them through your body out into some physical form or effort in order to make sure that you can feel it, say it, get it out, and then know that though it won't solve anything, it does validate the experience you're having and allows you the space to be angry if you're angry. So we're going to end our recording there. For all of you who are watching, please do check in on some of the other resources. We have suggestions on how to process anger in a healthy way. We have a variety of resources we'll be sending out along with this video. And more than anything else, we want you to remember and repeat to yourself that if you're angry and you need a way of expressing it, that's just a normal part of the grief experience, and you're definitely not alone in it. Thanks so much. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.